Jubilee, which was your first album in like 4 years, actually was recorded in 2019 and it came out in 21. And here you are finally getting out on a proper tour and playing at festivals and being able to play these songs to people. Uh, what were your expectations at the time you recorded Jubilee, and how do they compare with the reality today?
That's a great question. I actually have not been asked that question before. It's funny. I mean, I was so devastated about petty things when we had to postpone the album before we really knew what the pandemic had in store for us. I was like, I can't go to Europe to do my press tour and all this like stupid stuff. But I think that time made me feel like it was a really great album because even after sitting on it for so long, I just loved it more and more as time went on, and I definitely felt like it was the best thing that I had ever made, and that no matter what happened or no matter what the response was, I had made what I thought was the best album I'd ever made. I did not anticipate that we were going to be nominated for 2 Grammys. I did not anticipate a lot of the stuff that has happened. I was very pleasantly surprised, but more than anything, I was just so happy to play the album live to people again, and it was a very like good things come to those who wait with this record. I feel like
The two albums before that were primarily about grief and anguish, um, mainly about your mom and her passing, her struggles with cancer and all. And then Jubilee is about discovering joy or rediscovering joy. Was there a sense that it was just time to move on?
I think there's this self mythologizing part of wanting to move on from that subject that I really wanted to incorporate in even my second album that I just wasn't ready to write about yet. And I think after writing 2 albums about grief and loss and then a whole book about that experience, I finally felt like I had said everything I needed to say about that creatively, and I was ready to move on. And I felt like the most surprising theme for someone whose narrative is so associated with grief would be to write an album about joy. And I think part of me really wanted to will that into being for myself. But it's such a broad topic too. You know, the album is very much about struggling to feel joy or removing yourself from a situation that inhibits joy, giving yourself permission to feel joy, the joy of music. So it felt like a really wonderful theme to throw myself into.
And whether you're writing about grief or joy, and that's part of the beauty of songs and music in general is they mean different things to different people. But whether you're writing about yourself, whether it's very personal, or whether you're writing about something objective or just a fictitious character, you still have to like step outside of yourself, as you put it. How do you do that?
I think that it's just a lot of time and observation, and part of the creative process is kind of deconstructing those things on its own. Um, so yeah, I feel like it's just so much of it. Writing music is about exploring and taking the time and giving yourself the benefit of the doubt in that time to explore what you want to take out of it. Yeah, I feel like it's different every time.
Well, I mean, the truth is that every song is a commentary on real life,
Yeah,
even if it's made up, if it's not,
certainly. Yeah,
based
certainly.
on truth. All right, crying in H Mart. Now that was something you probably hadn't anticipated
Definitely not.
back at the time. Although I know you've always enjoyed writing and you read a lot, so it's not like it was just something totally out of the blue. But you have taken the ability to create these narratives and spread it across a lot of different avenues, whether it's writing a song, recording music, writing a book, which now it appears is going to be turned into a movie soon, and you've directed your own music videos. You have a lot of creative impulses, is what it comes down to. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I think that I'm. I've always been a very sensitive person, for better or for worse, and I think I'm so moved by ordinary life and mundane things and human interaction that I just have this desperate need to call attention to things that maybe most people might take for granted or not find particularly extraordinary. And I think that is just what compels me to tell these types of stories.
Again, in terms of motivation versus expectation, talk a little about the reaction to crying in H Mart and how you received that, how you reacted to that, and now the very thought that this will actually be a movie someday.
Yeah, I thought I might like squeak by onto the New York Times bestseller list at like number 15 for a week or something. But I did not anticipate that it has now, as of today, been on the New York Times bestseller list for 39 weeks, which is wild. And when I was a student in college and I studied creative writing, I had a professor named Daniel Torday who I was obsessed with, and I took every single one of his courses except for nonfiction because I never thought I would write nonfiction. And I think part of it comes from being mixed race, being Asian American. I never felt like I could be a main character of a story and have it be have it resonate with so many people because it's such a niche story in a way, and to find that that so many people were able to relate to this story and see it not just as an Asian American story, but a story about mothers and daughters and about grief and loss and about food and culture and memory. That really blew me away. I was very surprised.
And those are universal themes,
yeah.
Obviously. You have talked about the value of oversharing your life story, your feelings, your emotions. But there's also that need to draw boundaries between the personal and the public. How do you balance those two?
I think that, my mother was a very stoic, very withholding, very private person. And I've always really envied that type of mystery and longed for it in my life. And in my book, I talk about my mom. My mom used to always say, save 10% of yourself. And I keep that with me. And I think that from the outside, I'm sure it seems like it's all out there, but there is like a core part of myself that I know I have created a boundary for myself. I don't know how exactly it finds itself, but it feels very intuitive where that line is for me.
And it probably shifts during your life, as you get older.
Probably, yeah.
Learn more,
I think, yeah.
Needs change and all.
I definitely have become more and more of a private person. I used to like send out mail from my home address up until like 2 years ago, and I realized that I should probably keep that private.
One lesson you learned.
Yeah.
So food is obviously an important part of your life, and also the connection you had with your mom. And is that just a cultural traditional thing, or does it go deeper than that?
I'm sure that most families have culinary traditions, and there are certain foods that you just associate with a parent, and for me, I feel like my mom was not words of affirmation were not my mother's love language, and she was a very tough love kind of woman, and she really she was very blunt, honest person. So I feel like the way that she cared for me and showed me her love was through action and through cooking dishes that she knew that I liked, or if she couldn't say how she felt about something, I could feel that she put that into the meals that she prepared. And I think for me, because my mom is Korean and my dad is Caucasian, when my parent from that culture passed away, I suddenly felt like that part of me was at risk, or that part of me was gone, and in order to keep that in my life, I needed to actively work to maintain that part of my culture, otherwise I would lose it, and so cooking Korean food kind of became this way of connecting to not only my mother's memory, but also our shared culture and this fear of losing that now that she's gone.
That makes a lot of sense. So in terms of your mom's, as you say, tough love, one of the things that surprised me that you said in some other interview was that you were a bad child and a bad teenager.
That surprises
which,
you?
Frankly, Michelle, it is surprising. Hard to believe.
I don't seem like a bad gal. I'm wearing leather.
Well, I think you might have exaggerated a bit, but
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I definitely was not an easy kid. And I think part of being an artist is being sensitive and moody and taking it out on your parents and having an intense independent streak. I was not a great kid. You know, I was not a very well-behaved kid. But I'm sure that part of it also, in retrospect, was, you know, there was such a divide that we had between generations and between cultural upbringings that I think we had no real reference point of what our relationship should look like or what good behavior is, because it's so different from, you know, the different generations and different cultures. So I think that exacerbated the situation. But I was not easy. Certainly.
Well, you turned out okay, I think.
But I turned out okay.
So.
I think I just knew, you know, like my mom was afraid, like any mom would be afraid of a kid who says I want to be a rock star when I grow up. And so she just was trying to protect me from that, but I had to fight back because I knew.